Buda Castle is the historical castle and palace complex of the Hungarian Kings in Budapest. It was first completed in 1265. Although the massive Baroque palace today occupying most of the site was built between 1749 and 1769. The complex in the past was referred to as either the Royal Palace or the Royal Castle. The castle now houses the Hungarian National Gallery and the Budapest Historical Museum. Buda Castle sits on the southern tip of Castle Hill, surrounded by the touristic area known as Várnegyed, Castle Quarter, which is famous for its medieval, Baroque, and Neoclassical houses, churches, public buildings, and monuments. The hill is linked to Clark Ádám Square and the Széchenyi Chain Bridge by the Castle Hill Funicular. The castle is a part of the Budapest World Heritage Site, so declared in 1987. The original royal palace was ruined during World War II. It was rebuilt in a simplified Stalinist Baroque style during the Kádár era. The first royal residence on Castle Hill was built by King Bela IV of Hungary between 1247 and 1265. It is uncertain whether it was situated on the southern tip of the hill or the northern elevation. Near the Kammerhof, the oldest part of the present-day palace was built in the 14th century by Stephen, Duke of Slavonia, who was the younger brother of King Louis I of Hungary. Only the foundations remain of the castle keep, which was known as Stephen's Tower, Budapest. The Gothic palace of King Louis I was arranged around a narrow courtyard next to the keep. King Sigismund significantly enlarged the palace and strengthened its fortifications. Sigismund, as a Holy Roman Emperor, needed a magnificent royal residence to express his prominence among the rulers of Europe. He chose Buda Castle as his main residence. And during his long reign it became probably the largest Gothic palace of the late Middle Ages. Buda was an important artistic center of the international Gothic style. Construction began in the 1410s and was largely finished in the 1420s, although some minor works continued until the death of the king in 1437. The palace was first mentioned in 1437. Under the name Fritz Palota. The most important part of Sigismund's palace was the northern wing, known as the Fresh Palace, Hun, Fritz Palota. On the top floor was a large hall called the Roman Hall, 70 times 20 meters or 230 times 66 feet, with a carved wooden ceiling. Great windows and balconies faced toward the city of Buda. The facade of the palace was decorated with statues, and coat of arms. In front stood the bronze equestrian statue of Sigismund, later repaired by King Matthias Corvinus. The southern part of the royal residency was surrounded with narrow zwingers. Two parallel walls, the so-called Cortina walls, run down from the palace to the river Danube across the steep hillside. The most imposing structure, the broken tower, on the western side of the Cawr Dunor, remained unfinished. The basement of the tower was used as a dungeon. The top floors were probably the treasury of the royal jewels. The reconstructed medieval fortifications and the great rondella in the last years of his reign. Matthias Corvinus started construction of a new Renaissance palace on the eastern side of the Sigismund courtyard, next to the Fresh Palace. The Matthias Palace remained unfinished because of the king's early death. The walled gardens of the palace were laid out on the western slopes of Castle Hill. After the death of Matthias Corvinus, his successor, King Vladislaus II, carried on the works of the Matthias Palace, especially after his marriage with Anna of Foix-Candale in 1502. Under the reign of King John Zapolya, the last national ruler of Hungary, the palace was repaired. On the southern tip of Castle Hill, the Great Rondella was built by Italian military engineers. The circular bastion is one of the main surviving structures of the old palace. That is all. Subscribe and post comments for future videos.